on the list for description. Anyway, we're gonna waste time. Let's get into the video. So, almost a year ago, I talked about the first game, so well, I'm going to go over what you're getting and explain the differences between Origins and Origins Plus.
Well, it's not the same
The
as
games
Trinity
included here are
or
going to be Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and Sonic CD. These are all HD remakes with 16:9 resolution. Not actually the original ROMs, but they're very well done ports that feel just like the game they're based off of. For Sonic Plus, they added every Sonic in-year title. These are not HD.
实习生小黄报道。 弦鼓声声，伴我起舞。
12 games in less than a year. Game is the addition of Amy Rose as a playable character. In Sonic Advance, she played very differently from the other characters. She's unable to curl up into a ball, so she can still get hurt by game. She also can. So overall, she's much slower and more vulnerable, but she can jump higher than the other characters, and her disjointed hitbox allows her to get that extra reach. Amy is very good I really like. We really needed this change in Origins Plus, and we got it. One more thing I wanted to comment on, when I upgraded from regular Origins to Origins Plus, I was able to keep save files. I'm honestly sure I was going to have to crash. Thankfully, I didn't. Talked about the game as a whole. Individually. Sonic 1. Outside of the addition of Amy, I didn't notice any changes with this one. The character selection is still limited. There's still no option to play as Tails with another character, and there's still no super form when you collect all the Chaos Emeralds. Someone in the comments bug mode. But still, it would have been better if you were rewarded with it after collecting all the emeralds. Overall, they didn't really do much with Sonic 1. Sonic 2. This game already felt complete on the last collection. They got the character selection 100% correct in this game, and you can transform into all super forms if you collect Chaos Emeralds. There's even a Super Amy, which is a very nice addition. Oh, they got Sonic 2 right the first time, and they've only made it better here. Same deal with Sonic 3. This game already felt pretty complete on the last collection. You can play as every variation for Knuckles and Tails, but I can see why. That would have been kind of weird with the storyline and all. For Knuckles and Tails, but I can see why. That would have been kind of weird. For Tails, but I can see why. That would have been kind of weird with the storyline and all. No, and it's still the poorly written.
Here you are.
Everything angry. It's going well. I certainly didn't appear.
For 4 months, 2.5, or maybe 3.5, but it does not less than 3.
and grounded their kids.
我必须做得更好，必须阻止。
Now let's talk about Sonic CD. That's the biggest problems. Knuckles. It's really strange that you couldn't play as him in the last Sonic Origins, but they finally got it right here. They even modified some of the level layouts to incorporate Knuckles. Now, access areas that
俺们来啦！
选俺们准没错。
and the character selection were more flexible in Sonic 2. But on
愿做画中人，千年永不朽。
the games, let's talk about games because understand what they did with her. They actually changed her up a lot from Sonic Advance. They lost her ability to fire than their characters, but now
You are just unlucky. Accused by your backstabber. So we have to try it again.
curl up into a ball is one of her most great. And it's weird that they did away with it. I mean, you don't see them changing Knuckles or Tails like that. Amy did have some big weaknesses in Sonic Advance, but I liked that.
And was another so alternating means the Sarah.
Sonic
It will be only 6 years. I don't think a lot of time until
It's
10
great that they
or
added
11.
Amy, but the fact that they completely ignored
doing
Sonic
a game.
Advance is a big disappointment. Now let's get into the Game Gear titles. Literally every Sonic game is on here, so they could.
Good pinch.
They even included.
俺们来啦！
Okay, yeah, I could go to it again.
Menu is pretty lacking. You can add save states, which is nice, but there's no way to.
愿做画中人，千年永不朽。
So the selection is nice. I wish we got the better versions. For example, I would have
Hey,
preferred
Brown.
Dr. Robotnik's TV. Does anyone really want to play this watered down version? Release it.
That was just unlucky.
They have higher.
The Chinese version.
It's a really nice bonus.
I really like
It really does make Sonic
Oops. Oops.
classic mode. This was the biggest problem with the last collection. They didn't give us the original ROMs. Instead, they gave us anniversary edition. But Origins Plus might be a different story. After all, they gave us the year ROMs, so maybe they'll actually give us the Genesis ones too.
I had to use the excuse in a debate.
Classic mode. Now, I'm gonna do Sonic 2, because Sonic 2 is the easiest game to tell if it's really classic mode or not.
Yeah.
Okay, it already looks kind of different. Alright, yeah, this interface looks a little different, not a good sign. Ooh, yeah, the character selection, ooh, I don't know. Alright, this doesn't seem too bad yet.
Nice. I enjoy it. I am really enjoying this as well.
Looks like the original game, they got it right.
I just got unlucky with King Bait. That's it. That's it. But it's why I didn't vote. Yes. That was just unlucky. I'll try again. Yes. Yes.
嘿，我必须是。
One, two. Not bad. What? Heavy it was in the last and last base.
这个 I got a question. What are you guys doing? Why are you giving us anniversary?
I'm 们来啦！
选俺们准没错。
So, for reference, this is the special stages like in the original
愿做画中人，千年永不朽。
here. So, why is when I hear Flex, I assume I'm getting the original ROMs, not remakes. There's going to be a handful of people who don't care about the upgrades. They just want to play the disappointed that they're not actually getting the Genesis games, but rather
Yes.
completely different. Here, though, one Switch Online, and the Android versions are still listed in the Play Store. So it doesn't seem like Sega was ever planning on removing all their Sonic games from other platforms to make Origins look more appealing. But it's still unacceptable that they didn't fix the biggest problem with this collection. From a programmer standpoint, I still don't
Yes.
doing reason. It seems like it would be much easier to copy paste the ROMs on here.
One night again.
Before I wanted to talk about a which I encountered in Sonic 3. In Carnival Junkie Zone X2, I made it to a light switch near the set of spikes. Because of Amy's weird hitbox, even as Super Amy, I couldn't make it through. In mind, there's no alternate path.
Correct.
Either. You have to go through these spikes to progress. I had to try like 5 or 6 times. It seemed like no matter how careful I was, I just couldn't get past this part. I kept dying.
Oops.
I never had this issue with any of the other characters, just Amy. Eventually, with some very careful maneuvering, I was able to make it.
Not bad.
A few glitches with Knuckles and Sonic CD. The levels, you can easily climb up into the ceilings. This makes a lot of the stages very easy, and keep in mind, the other games don't allow you to do this. Another thing I noticed, in Title Tempest Act 3, normally you're supposed to go down.
I will use this skill
but I
to
decided to turn it
quickly.
off and look for secret monitors. Doing this, I seemed to soft lock the game because Robotnik wasn't
The
showing
new
up,
one.
and I couldn't progress any further. I was stuck in an endless loop. Thankfully, I was able to go back to the menu and try a second time, and this time
That's what I've heard.
like I'm
He
supposed
uses
to,
skill
and
to
worked fine.
quickly.
So it seems like they didn't spend a lot of time testing this game with Knuckles. They just threw him in and
Oh.
called it a day. Now,
More.
these are some very minor issues, but I thought I would just bring it up. So here's the big question. Is this a worthy successor to Sonic?
I imaginated Sarah. When the icon comes in the end with the gadget bar.
The addition of Amy as a playable character and the included Game Gear titles really makes this new collection worth it. I'm really happy with the changes they made.
So,
With that said, though, the collection still doesn't feel totally complete. I don't like what they did with Amy, and some of the games are still missing basic features. But the biggest issue is that they classified.
by the cat.
告诉我你到底是谁？你的谎言已经被拆穿了。
弦鼓声声，伴我起舞。
We are drawing one. And if that doesn't go well, it will remain as Sarah. Then I will go to his rotten.
Really help people grow. If you have anything to share, feel free to leave a comment. I read every single comment on this channel, and I'm pretty good at replying back. Anyway, have a good one.
I think I figured out how to use that well now. And you've been so suspected. That's when to use your skill. Chocolate.
Know about Sega, but there was actually another competitor, NEC console, the TurboGrafx 16. But you don't hear about this console all that much. So how does it Well, let's take a look. It's Poacher, coming at you with another video. Alright, we'll be talking about the TurboGrafx 16. That's a console I've been pretending doesn't exist. So if you've seen a couple of my videos and you like what I do, hit that subscribe button right there. We just hit 10,000 subscribers. Thank you so much. Let's go further. And if you haven't already, join our Discord server. It's going to be at discord.twitter.net. I'll also put a link in the description. Anyway, let's talk about the TurboGrafx 16. It's 4 times faster. The games are One of the first companies to support Nintendo was Hudson Soft. In Japan, they were the first third-party company to support the Famicom. Their earlier titles were very simplistic, with levels that were only one screen with very basic controls. Some of Hudson's games were Bomberman, Adventure Island, Lode Runner, and others. However, Hudson didn't only have a desire to make games, they also wanted to make hardware. But when the used to buy their graphics chip, Hudson decided to work with someone else instead. Around this same time, the company NEC heard that Japanese computers were very successful. NEC wanted to join the video game market, but they didn't have a lot of video game knowledge. So as a result, Hudson and NEC joined forces and they would work on a new console. On October 30th, 1987, the PC Engine was released, marketed as the first console. This new console was initially a massive success, and the unit was a Famicom, which was unlike anything we had seen. But looks can be deceiving because despite its small form factor, it was more powerful than the Famicom. The engine. So we. By looking at some of the games, NES. Its color palette was way bigger and it could handle more sprites on screen. These capabilities were especially nice for shooters. Normally, the NES would suffer from slowdown from games like these, but the PC Engine could handle bigger sprites as well as more sprites on screen with ease. A lot of arcade ports that the PC Engine got were much better than what we got on the Famicom or NES. Gradius, for example, looks way more like the arcade version, and it still retains the vertical scrolling, which was something that the NES version had to remove. Pac-Land, while the Famicom version was great for its time, the PC Engine one...
It's by the case.
So it seems like things are going well for NEC and Hudson. With the great success from their console so far...
Nero is actually a really good one, but just like Godfather, you need to use it when you're about to get caught.
Stop there. Team GB, if you're listening, try these on.
Because
It saves you from being caught. That is.
yes,
Oh.
but the previous rounds went around.
Oh, okay.
Alright, anyway,
At least now you know.
cool.
In order to attract a US audience, NEC didn't want to release the console as is, they made some changes. They figured its design, and they wanted to pick a name that presented the console better. So they went with a darker, slightly bigger design than its Japanese counterpart, and the console was renamed to the TurboGrafx 16. On August 28, 1989, the console would be officially... Unlike Japan, NEC and Hudson ran into some issues, one of them being the pack-in game. So when you make a new console, you want to be very careful what game to include with all. You want to give it good first game, you want to show off the console's capabilities. Remember, this is going to be the consumer's introduction to the console. Yes, so that's the resolution of the game with very large levels. There was nothing like this in the pack-in game. On the Genesis, pack-in game. Not the strongest title, but it features big sprites and parallax scrolling, which made the Genesis stick out from the competition. The TurboGrafx 16's pack-in game was Keith Courage. This is a very basic platformer that's divided into two parts. In the first part, you play as a slow-moving kid on a level that scrolls horizontally. In the second part, you have the Nova School. You can move much. Not just left and right. This is an okay game, but it doesn't show off the console's capabilities all that much. The graphics don't look much better than the NES, and the game...
If we are doing in
the levels are the same, but with a different color palette. The TurboGrafx is capable of handling big sprites, but we don't see much of that here. They definitely made a mistake by making this the pack-in game. Even though Keith Courage was not a great introduction to the TurboGrafx 16, the console did have a lot to offer. So,
I understand.
Here's
And have it.
Adventure Island. Here you play as aliens who complete the level while staying well fed. You start out defenseless, but you get various weapons throughout the game. This is basically a better version of the NES one with superior graphics and more features. Developers tried to get around the lack of parallax scrolling by using sprites as the background and using single-layer parallax scrolling. We can definitely see TurboGrafx 16's capabilities a little better here with background sprites and a large color palette. The music is also excellent. Overall, this is a great game, and I'm glad they brought this franchise to the console. Adventure. Who is actually the mascot for the console. You can use your head as a weapon and also glide in the air by repeatedly turning your head. Throughout the game, there's meat that you can grab abilities. The mechanics take some getting used to. You can't simply jump on anything. You have to face your head downwards in order to... On the other hand, you can actually hit enemies above you if your head is facing the right way. A few times, I was facing the wrong way and took damage. Mario, where you can just jump on top of them without thinking about it. I'm not a big fan of the graphic style. Honestly, it looks more like an NES game. Although to be fair, there are some good sprites, and they did use background sprites for parallax scrolling on some stages. With that said, this is a decent game, much better than Keith Courage. It's insane that they made that game the pack-in title and not this one. Here's Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu. It's a silly platformer where you play a bobblehead-looking Jackie Chan. Your regular abilities are limited, just jumping, punching, and kicking, but you can collect icons that give you temporary special moves. I thought this would be a fighting game since it's Jackie Chan, but I'm glad they went the platforming route. This game was also released on the NES, but this version is much better. On some stages, we see some single-layer parallax scrolling, which is a nice touch. The game uses big sprites, and the graphics are colorful, so we really see the power of the music here.
It's 88 kids.
This is one of my favorite games on the console, if not my favorite. Here's a few other games that are worth mentioning. Magical Chase, which is the rarest and most expensive TurboGrafx title, is a nice cute up with very colorful graphics and nice parallax scrolling. This could pass as a Super Nintendo game. Alien Crush is one of the best pinball games on the console, and it has very colorful graphics. Blazing Laser is a decent shooter with colorful graphics, parallax scrolling using sprites, and many weapon upgrades to pick from. The NES had trouble handling shooters like these with all the sprites on screen, but this was to get the look at it. Your bomb is
Pinty kids.
Street Fighter 2 was ported to this console as well, and it came out in. It really shows the TurboGrafx games. So yeah, in the pack-in game was a very interesting decision. Another game. Logically super. And support 2 background layers. The game could do everything that the TurboGrafx could and more, and that's weird because it's technically available on console. To be fair though, the TurboGrafx's launch was Ian Hudson spent on Americanizing the console. Had they released the PC Engine in the US without changing anything, it would have come out sooner than the Genesis. Not only was the Genesis better hardware-wise, but the TurboGrafx hardware was not quite cutting it. The console's inability to pair caused indie games look like creative choice.
任务开始后，脑子都放清楚点儿。
Which legitimately looks like a second back.
诸天万界，繁华世间。
So you don't get a lot of detail. It almost looks like the top. The NES was actually capable of this tactic as well, and we saw it in games with micro machines. Like I mentioned with some of the games, single-layer parallax scrolling was used here and there. This is when you take the same background layer and have them scroll at 2 different speeds.
I'm sorry.
In the parallax scrolling layer, so you have to. From a game design perspective, it limits you on where you can place a block. The developer on whether they want to sacrifice the level design for better graphics. NES was also capable of single-layer parallax scrolling, and numerous games utilize this. Games use background sprites as a method of parallax scrolling. This is nice because you don't need to waste a part of the one and only background layer that the console has. But the drawback is, like all sprites, to leave them on screen at once causes flickering. And do you really want flickering because of the background? But to be fair, the TurboGrafx 16 was great at handling lots of big sprites on screen, so this was almost never a big deal. The NES almost never utilized this tactic because because even more than 2 or 3 sprites on screen might cause
Tense.
developers have to utilize these tricks to stay relevant against the competition. Without parallax scrolling, a lot of the games make the TurboGrafx 16 look like nothing more than a beefed up NES. As a console that's trying to Genesis and later on the Super Nintendo, this is not a good look. Speaking of hardware, it's debatable whether the TurboGrafx 16 is actually a 16-bit console or not. It's also a 16-bit graphical processing unit. This is an 8-bit CPU, so it's really up in the air whether this should be considered an 8-bit console or a 16-bit one. In Japan, the PC Engine.
Oh, so 8 gram is their house, like they own their house that they're not renting or.
No, they own it. He was certainly one of his jobs was a very, very, very big job. Another big lots of Oxford bricks.
It's not the same.
Once it's really. In the old days, there used to be universities and polytechnics. And polytechnics you'd go to do sort of more things like nursing, midwifery, planning, engineering, but sort of practical engineering, that sort of thing, printing. But then maybe 20 Oxford Brookes University is one of the best new universities ever. Like it used to be Brookes University, so it was it's considered one of the best ones and has lots of very good courses. And there was Oxford Brookes, which is basically the biggest job in the
Oops.
CEO and chair of the business. So,
So I still saying that you can even stay at the school if you want. It's like if you live in a house and you don't
yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's like this. Even at Oxford, each college has its own head of house, as well as their someone who runs the whole thing. So Steve works at Trinity College. Trinity. He gets to live in a beautiful house in the college as well. Yeah. Even the fellows, I think, in the olden days, used to houses to live in.
But they started the lot of
Right.
to the channel.
I
诸天万界，繁华世间。
It was a very nice. Yeah, when you look back, you think, I'm glad I didn't know that when I was talking to them because I would have been like, oh, yes, hello.
俺们来啦！
选俺们准没错。
愿作画中人，千年永不朽。
No, that's unlucky. That means I need to try again. Debbie Rose is possibly better for this. I really was in that. It's not going around. I will maybe almost say for Sarah. We're doing that. Sorry.
Play your new television game.
Get into more games.
It's the main how gonna make any anyway to
任务开始后，脑子
诸
都放清
天万界，繁华世间。
I think it's getting a bit too much.
How about playing?
I think it's gonna need to Sarah. I'll just run around the planet very narrow. Hold on. Then the Vopo room made the Sarah. It's really a high chance of me saying the emeritus.
Did
俺们来啦！
选俺们准没错。
Hello.
愿作画中人，千年永不朽。
I think I just played my last try before having a shower. Sarah! It's not going well. Too much again. I do know it's not. Yeah, just the like if it says you don't get it, I mean high chance of retaining the N-word. So that's a problem. if and it's gonna crash and
It's just
it's not to go well. It's crashed.
Really hard though, Ron. Didn't you? You tried really
Sarah, unfortunately.
okay. We can go to the bar.
What do you mean in the shower in the morning?
get that fixed in the schedule.
What do you mean the high chance of meeting in the N-word?
Right, let's go.
Let me try one more time.
Okay, it's over here. Fine.
Let's get ready for it. Sarah, what do you mean the high chance of meeting the N-word to Saturday? It's not going that well. It's basically as it just crashed.
Fine.
Yeah. I think it's almost Saturday.
Yeah, not problem.
It might be probably crashed. It's so you have to reboot it.
Oh, the whole game.
Maybe I didn't get everything out. But to get ready for Sarah, which will mean a high chance of me saying the N-word to Saturday to tomorrow.
So what are you doing? Just
Never give myself a morning. I think it's gonna need to it. And it's gonna crash. So. It's not going that well.
How about trying the other game? In television.
Lucky. Wait. I won. Mission completed.
One.
Despite the happening. Yeah. So the other is not a shower. That means I could do this game random again, but now I